Okay, so the Beckman Young Investigators Program provides research support to the most promising young faculty members in the early stages of their academic careers, specifically in the chemical and life sciences. This program looks to receive applications that are looking to provide new methods, instruments, and materials that will open up new avenues of research in science. These next few slides will go over the BYI program guidelines. These have remained unchanged for a number of years, but I'm happy to ask or answer any questions if you have at the end of the call regarding the guidelines. So first and foremost, the projects proposed should be truly innovative and high risk. We're looking for applications that show promise for contributing to significant advances in the chemical and life sciences. Proposals should represent a departure from current research rather than an extension or expansion of existing programs or your postdoctoral work. And proposed research that cuts across traditional boundaries of scientific disciplines is encouraged. Proposals that open up new avenues of research in chemistry and life sciences by fostering the invention of methods, instruments, and materials will be given additional consideration in the spirit of the award. This program strives to provide funds for promising young scientists early in their career that have not yet received a major award from another organization. This will be explained a little bit more detail coming up in regards to the amount of money you'll be able to have in order to remain eligible. Projects are normally funded for a period of 4 years in the amount of $600,000, $150,000 annually, and this is contingent upon demonstrated progress after the second year of the award. And the foundation does not provide for overhead or indirect costs. This is just a foundation guideline for all of our programs. So moving on to the BYI program eligibility. So these are extremely important, and the foundation doesn't really have room for flexibility with these guidelines. I'll explain the one time that we do have flexibility coming up. So first and foremost, you must be within the first 3 years of your tenure track position or an equivalent independent research appointment at a United States academic or nonprofit institution. So for the 2020 program, you must have started your tenure track position after or on or after August 6, 2016, but before 8/6/2019. Candidates must be citizens or permanent residents of the United States at time of application. This is because we required government documentation be uploaded at the letter of intent. Candidates can apply a maximum of 2 times. This also includes submitting a letter of intent. Candidates can have no more than $225,000 in direct annualized external funding, and we are looking for you to report on all of your funding with the exception of department-wide instrumentation grants, startup funds, and any transition grants received as a postdoc. Institutions are not limited to the number of applicants who apply, and previous awardee institutions are eligible to submit for the 2020 program. So this next slide is going to cover the components of the letter of intent. This has remained unchanged for a number of years. The only difference for the 2020 program is that we've moved to a new application platform, which hopefully is a little bit more user-friendly. The letter of intent components include a PI profile, scanned copies of your citizenship permanent residency documentation, a 1,200-word proposal, a bio-sketch in which a template is provided, a research support form with a template as well, and institutional endorsements from Chief Academic Officer and Dean. So to cover those last couple a little bit more in detail, the citizenship permanent residency documentation must include one of the following. 1 is a U.S. passport, 2 is a birth certificate and driver's license, or a permanent residence card. To clarify the institutional endorsements, sometimes these cause a little bit of confusion. These are not letters of recommendation. These are just an electronic signature that is collected and submitted via the online application request section. We're looking for signatures from the Chief Academic Officer and Dean, but a similarly authorized signer is welcome to sign in their place. These signatures mean that the endorsers have reviewed the letter of intent and any associated materials that you'll be submitting. All parties agree to the terms of the BYI program, and the institution will continue ongoing support levels of the applicant. Some important dates for the 2020 program, as many of you are aware, August 9th, 2019, the 2020 letter of intent is due. In early November, we'll notify you if you're invited to submit a full application, and the full application will be due January 6th, 2020. Notification for interviews will be made in late March, and the interviews will be April 16th through 17th, 2020 in Irvine, California. In May 2020, we'll announce our awardees, and August 6th through 9th, 2020, new awardees are invited to attend the Beckman Symposium also in Irvine. Just as a reminder, the system does get a little bit flooded as the application due date gets closer. I highly encourage you to submit your application on time early if possible. It's just not advised that you wait until the last hour to submit, because sometimes the system does have it does get a little bit overwhelmed, and then it could cause issues with your application being submitted on time. Okay, so these next few slides will cover some frequently asked questions that I'm asked over the years. If I don't cover a question that you have, please feel free to use that chat feature, and I will get to those as soon as these are over. So this question is regarding how to break down funding in the research support form. So this image that you're looking at is actually pulled from the 2020 letter of intent. So essentially what we're looking for in box labeled A is both the total amount of your award and the direct amount. So in this example, my total amount is $100,000, but my lab specifically is receiving $80,000. In subsequent boxes B, C, D, and E, I'm only reporting on my direct amount. If your award starts mid-year relative to our chart, just report the funding you'd expect during the months listed for the BYI program. With regards to what funding should be included, I did touch on this a little bit earlier, but we are looking for you to include all current and pending funding, including grants in which you are a co-PI. If you are a co-PI, include in box A the total amount of the award and the direct amount your fund received, and then boxes B through E should only include the annualized funding that your lab received specifically, so your direct funding. So as a reminder, the only funding that does not count toward the $225,000 limitation is department-wide instrumentation grants, startup funds, and transition grants received as a postdoc. On page 2 of the research support form, you'll see a chart, and that chart will autofill based on your responses in pages 3 through 5. We often get questions about collaborations. You are welcome to collaborate with others on your proposal. However, this program is a individual award, so only one person will be named the awardee. If you do plan on using any scientific collaborations, you should explain that in your proposal. If you are currently in a non-tenure track position, such as a lecturer, instructor, teaching professor, generally those titles would indicate to me that you are not eligible. To clarify the equivalent, this is mostly referring to a similar title at a research institution. But if you're at an institution that offers tenure track positions and you're just currently not in one, that would be something that would make you ineligible. If your research is within the confines of chemistry and life sciences, but you use clinical research methods, we do not support clinical research, so unfortunately your application would not be eligible. Oftentimes, especially because this application is due during summer, the dean, chief academic officer is out of the office. Someone else is welcome to sign in their place as long as they have the signing authority to do so. The letter of intent asks for independent evaluators, and we often get asked what their role is in this application. So really, this is just a collection method for the foundation to better understand experts in your field. We generally won't reach out to these people. It's just for us to have a background, and if we need to reach out to anyone specifically, we have that information. The foundation does not provide feedback on submitted letters of intent or full proposals. This is just due to the volume of proposals and the small staff at the foundation. To cover the review process in a couple sentences, essentially this is a multi-tiered review process. It's conducted by a general scientific committee who are experts in the chemical and biological sciences. The first tier is a letter of intent review. We'll invite approximately 100 letters of intent to submit a full application. We will typically get anywhere between 300 and 400 letters of intent each year. Tier 2, full proposals are reviewed, and we'll invite roughly 16 finalists to attend the in-person interview. Tier 3 is the interview. From the 16, we will award up to 10 in spring 2020. Okay, so this last slide is my contact information. You're welcome to reach out to me if you have any specific questions, but in the meantime, I'll go through the chat and see if there's any questions I haven't already responded to. So just bear with me one moment. Okay, thanks for your patience. First question I'm going to respond to was, does an NSF Career Award preclude a candidate from this opportunity? This really depends. The NSF Career Award is quite significant and large in funding, so it depends on how much money you have remaining from that award. I would assume if you are a recent awardee, recent enough to be eligible for our program, it would probably preclude you from applying just due to the total number of amount of funding that you do have. If this isn't the case and you have something more specific, please feel free to reach out to me and I can confirm for you. Okay. This question is regarding feedback on applications. Like I mentioned, unfortunately, we do not provide feedback. The foundation is quite small, and with the number of applications we receive, it's just not possible for us to do. Next question is, how much preliminary data is required for the application? The Beckman Young Investigators application does not require any preliminary data. If you have some preliminary data, you're welcome to include it, but it's not required. Next question, the institutional letter should be from Dean of School of Medicine or Chair of Department. Just want to clarify, this is not a letter, this is just a signature for the letter of intent. Letters of recommendation are something that we ask for in the full application. In regards to if it should be the Dean of School of Medicine or Chair of Department, it depends on which institution you are. I would say generally the Dean of the school and the Chair of the department would be okay to sign, but it really is dependent upon your institution. You're welcome to reach out to me or your Office of Sponsored Programs to clarify who should be signing this for you. Okay, next question. How exactly are the institutional endorsement signatures obtained? Does the system send an email to the one signing? Yes. So our new application system allows you to enter in an email address to whom you want this to be sent to. When that email address is typed in and you hit mark as complete, an email is sent to that person along with instructions on how to sign for this letter of intent. This new system requires that signees create an account. There's instructions on how to do that. They'll have to create an account with our system. Once that account is created and they log in, they'll take them immediately to a page in which they can electronically sign the application as well as see components of the application, and they hit submit from there. Once that happens, the PI will receive an email letting them know that he or she has received the signature from the requested signee. Next question, what about internal seed funds from the university? Does that count? This one can be pretty specific. I'd probably need a little bit more information to respond to this. I've seen them generally that they do need to be counted, but it's because it's a very specific set-aside fund. So for this, I would say reach out to me and give me a little bit more detail. Okay, next question. If I'm a co-PI or co-I on an NIH award, does that need to be listed? Yes. If your lab is receiving funding from any award, whether it's just you or as a co-PI, that does need to be included. As I mentioned, we are interested in just your direct funding. So in regards to if you're still eligible, it just depends on how much money you're receiving from that co-PI. Is the $225,000 total awarded or received to date? We're looking at, let me see if I can go back to that slide. So we're mostly concerned with this year and the years that the program would be occurring. So we're looking at August 2019 through July 2020, all the way through August 2022 to July 2023. So the $225,000 limitation must remain at or under for each of those years, as listed in the research support form. Okay, the next question is, does sub-award funding count? Again, if your lab is receiving funding, then yes, it should be counted. Next question, in the budget, what is the difference between total and direct? Indirect is unallowed, correct. So our program doesn't allow for indirect funds. I can't speak for other programs. So when we're referring to the total amount, we're referring to the amount that the award was actually worth in full. So assuming that most do have overhead, that would be part of that total amount. The direct amount is referring to the actual dollars the PI's lab is receiving annually. Next question, is it better to have independent evaluators who are not former mentors nor who are, I think that might have gotten cut off. The independent evaluators don't have to be people you know at all. We're just looking for experts in your field. These, again, are not letters of recommendation. These are not people that are going to comment on your application. These are just people that should be experts in your field. So should we have to reach out to an expert in your field, we have that available to us. I think I already answered this one, but how many LOIs are typically received? Anywhere between 300 and 400 each year. Okay, next question. Do applicants have to complete any LOI sections before requesting the 2 endorsements? This has been required previous years. So typically, the answer is technically yes, because we want the endorsers to review the application as complete as possible. However, because the system does require that these endorsements are received before or at the time of deadline, it's okay to send these out before. We do ask that whomever you're sending these to do receive a copy of your proposal at least, so that the people signing are aware of what you're applying with. But just to kind of circle back on that, the letter of intent does require that you have these 2 signatures in order to submit your application. So it's very important that you get these done on time. Next question, can you elaborate on the criteria by which applications are judged? Sure, the criteria is exactly as we listed in our guidelines, so I'll go back to that slide. So our reviewers are provided these guidelines and told that we are looking for exactly what we tell our applicants we're looking for. So they're looking for really cutting edge, high risk, novel, interdisciplinary, things that are looking to provide new methods, new instruments. We're also looking for sort of the whole package as well. So we're looking for somebody who has, a great track record. They look at all of those types of things as well. But really, the criteria as provided to the reviewers is what we're providing to you in the guidelines. So there's not really anything that should be hidden from you. They're just looking for new, exciting, innovative, and different. Can you elaborate on the role of independent evaluators? Sure, I think I touched on this, but again, these are just people that are experts in your fields. The foundation likes to keep this information so that we have this at our fingertips if needed, if we needed to reach out to somebody who was an expert in your field for a question. That's it. We don't reach out to them for any other reason, and they will not be commenting on your letter of intent. Okay, for the $225,000 maximum indirect funding to qualify, what is the deadline to be under this number? If you're invited to submit a full application, which is due early January, at that point you do have to remain under the $225,000 limitation. So, for example, if you're at that limitation right now during your letter of intent, you submit, you're asked to submit a full application. If your funding at that point is over $225,000, you are no longer eligible. After your full application is submitted, up until the interview, it's open, so you don't have to worry about that limitation being on you anymore. What is your policy regarding topic overlap with other grants if the other grants are smaller than the $225,000 per year? We do allow overlap, but we are looking for this project to be something that you're not currently working on. This should be something new for you and your lab. So overlap is allowed. I don't really have a specific percentage that I could provide you, but again, this really should be something that you're just looking to fund with the Arnold Mabel Beckman Foundation. I think I just answered this, but let me make sure. What happens if an applicant receives a major award after submitting a letter of intent or after submitting a full proposal? Okay, yeah, so this was answered. If you receive it in between letter of intent and full application, you're no longer eligible. If you receive it after full application is submitted, you're still okay. Next question, is pending support equal to anticipated? My understanding of anticipated is that you were notified that you received this award but have not received the funds. Perhaps that's incorrect, but pending support would mean that you've applied for a grant but have not heard back yet. If you know that you've received the grant but have not yet received the funds, that would be current, and you would just have to break out when that money would actually be coming to your lab. How are the application guidelines changing for the 2020 cycle? For example, when an applicant begins a tenure track position. That's really the major change for the 2020 cycle. We have not changed any of our program guidelines or eligibility. Each year, the tenure track start date moves up, obviously, as the program year changes. So for the 2020 program, the dates are, excuse me, I'll get that slide up, August 6th, 2016, but before August 6th, 2019. Okay, next question. Am I eligible if I'm a new tenure track assistant professor but have been a non-tenure for a couple of years in another institution? Yes, you are eligible. As long as you were in a non-tenure track position for the previous years, and this is your first or second year in your new tenure track position, you are eligible. Next question. For grants on which I am a PI, but sharing the funds with co-investigators, does the full direct amount of the grant count toward the $225,000 limit, or is it just the amount going to my lab? So I just want to make sure, let me read the front. So you are the PI, but you share with co-investigators. So I would do the total amount as the total amount of the award, and then the direct amount would be the portion that's just going to your lab. Next question, can you talk more about the reviewers' expertise, background? Sure, the reviewers are generally, they're going to be previous or former Beckman Young investigators, as well as just experts in the chemical and biological sciences. They're all professors at United States institutions, and many of them have reviewed FOREST previously. However, they all receive the same training in regards to what to look for and how to review these applications. I think, oh, not the last question. Next question is, can one include figures in the LOI? Yes, you're welcome to include figures in the letter of intent. Figures and captions are not included in that 1,200 word count. Okay, next question. I'm an associate research scientist at a nonprofit research institute, but there is no tenure track. Am I eligible? Off the bat, it sounds like a yes, but it would be best if you could reach out to me so I can confirm. Okay, that was the last question. So if anyone has any last minute questions, I'll give it one more minute in the chat box. But if not, let me go back to the last slide that has my contact information. You are more than welcome to email me, to call me with any specific questions that you may have. Please do so now as opposed to as we get very close. We do also have our foundation symposium leading up to the application being due, so I'm happy to help you. It looks like we got one more question. Do you fund theory-only projects? Yes, we do. Short answer for a short question. Okay, got another one. Do we need to list the grant that I am a co-PI? Yes, you do need to list this grant. If your lab is receiving funding from any grant, including which you are a co-PI, this does need to be counted towards your $225,000 limitation. Okay. Can you elaborate a bit on how divergent from your previous work your proposals needs to be? Sure. It's a little bit tricky because we're not going to disqualify you if you're doing something that you did as a postdoc, but we are looking for you to be taking this in a new direction if it is something you did as a postdoc. If it's a complete extension from what you've already been working on, that's not really going to cut it. If you're looking to Right. Okay. Thank you for a better way to say it is, if it's the next logical step in your research, that would be fine. We just don't want it to be something that you were working on previously, none of the aims have changed, and now you're applying for the Young Investigator Program. Okay. There's a little bit of confusion about the co-PI question, so I'm going to go back to that slide and just explain one more time. Just bear with me. Okay, so in the case of a co-PI, do we include how much goes to my lab or the total amount? Okay, so both. In the box labeled A, we're looking for both the total amount, which would be the total amount of the award, including what the other co-PIs are receiving. The direct amount is specific to what your lab is receiving. So we do want to see both. You're only going to break out in the $225,000 limitation, boxes B through E, what your lab is receiving, AKA the direct amount. Okay, I think that's it for questions. Thank you very much for attending. As I mentioned earlier, I will be posting this on both of our website and our Beckman Foundation YouTube channels. Welcome to take any additional questions after the call. Thank you very much.